Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. My guest for today is, I should have asked you before we started to make sure that I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's Mark Alsip.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. Um, and Mark is a former young earther, and I got to meet Mark in person at Ark Encounter, and that was quite the honor. Mark has 2 books on the market, and both of them are linked in the description. One is Journey to Reason, and the other one, let's see, I can't remember the name of the other one. Bound by Faith. So, Mark, start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Kelly, we have an echo on the line. I'm hearing your voice twice.
Okay, I'm not hearing it. It might be on your end because I don't hear it. People in the chat, if you are hearing an echo, please let me know, and we'll see what we can do with the audio. Does anyone in the chat hear an echo, or are you okay? I'm not getting a response here yet. Okay, the chat says that there's no echo.
Okay. Yeah, it's let me try doing one. Well, oh yeah. So about
Okay, while Mark's taking care of that, Mark and I got to meet at Ark Encounter, which was really cool because Mark actually lives in Kentucky, so not all that far from the Ark. And Mark used to be a young earther. His book is about his journey from young earth to atheism. And Mark, you're back with us now. I see your mic isn't muted anymore. Are you still hearing an echo?
yes, unfortunately, when you speak, so the sentence you just finished a second ago is just not coming across again. I hear it, and then about 5 minutes later, I hear the sentence again. Um, I wonder if I exit and come back in. Would that work, maybe?
I don't know.
Yeah, the words I just spoke are just not coming back. There's I'm hearing them twice. I asked for everyone out there if this is on my end.
Do you have 2 devices open? Do you have the show open on another tab?
No. Let me make sure. I had a couple YouTube channels open. Oh, maybe. Yes. Okay,
Okay.
problem solved. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I've been able to hear you all along. Okay, but you're not hearing an echo anymore?
Yeah, okay. I apologize. What happened is yesterday I tested the link to your show, and I left that browser link open to the waiting room. So apparently, when I joined in the new tab this morning, I apologize to you, Kelly, and the audience. We're good. We're good to go now, though. It sounds great. Sorry. So sorry.
All right. So start telling us a little bit about yourself personally. Now I'm hearing an echo. Okay, now it's gone again. Okay.
Satan is
what faith you were in, what faith you were raised in, and your education and what you do today, and then we'll go back and go through your whole journey.
Sure. So I tell everybody I was born Catholic in Wisconsin, but of course we're all born atheists. Nobody's born believing in a God. But my mom's family was Catholic, and they believe in the whole original sin thing. So they insisted I was baptized. I think there's pictures of me as a 6-day-old with some strange guy pouring water over my head, and I wasn't happy about that. The one thing I remember,
No baby is.
No baby is, no. And they say they warmed the water up now, but yeah, I'm not having it. They say that at that time, the Catholics were very strict. My father was a Protestant, and their wedding picture, I noticed when I was young, there was a wall across the aisle where my father was not holy enough to approach the altar because he wasn't a true Catholic. So I had people telling me this good man that I looked up to didn't measure up. He wasn't good enough in God's eyes.
Mhm.
From Kentucky, and we eventually moved back to Kentucky when I was in grade school, and things completely flipped. I started going to my dad's younger creationist church, and they started telling me that the Catholics were all bound for hell and that I wasn't a true Christian.
Yep.
So at the start, I had two major religions telling me that my parents were bad people. The younger creationists, I think, were a little worse because they would threaten me with hell if I didn't believe in that. And I can give some stories later as we go on through. But there were always threats that I was going to burn for eternity. Even they
Mhm.
took us to movies as young children. The problem was I was also in love with science. I was a good science student. And when I would go to church and talk about being excited about rainbows or the age of the universe or dinosaurs, what kid doesn't love dinosaurs, right? We'd have
Mhm.
the Ken Ham types telling me that this young kid is going to burn. So my introduction to religion was rocky, and I stayed in the religion for decades. But
Really?
yeah, I didn't want to give up on Jesus. I didn't want to give up on heaven. I didn't want to give up on God. When you're a very young child and you have this beaten into you, and that's
Mhm.
I really want to drive home. That is the major problem with the Ark Encounter is that you start threatening young children, and even though they might have reason, they might be
Mhm.
able to work things out and go, "Oh, this is nonsense." If you get to them early enough and terrify them, then 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 you've got them for life. So it was harder to break away than people might realize.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
That was an issue my mother had with the Catholic Church.
yeah,
She was raised Catholic, and they were always threatened with hell if they didn't behave themselves. And in the Catholic Church, everybody goes to, well, not to hell, but to purgatory, which is practically the same thing.
yeah,
And you spend your time in purgatory until you get purified, and then you get to come to heaven. And you reduce your time in purgatory by, all kinds of different ways. But
yeah.
yeah, my mom always had a terrible fear of fire, and so
Mhm.
all the threats of purgatory were they actually were the one thing that kind of drove her from the church.
I can see that, and looking back on it now, it's surprising that I didn't leave sooner because now I can see that it's all nonsense. But
Mhm.
one thing I remember that really it drove me to get baptized the next weekend is all the kids in our small town of 10,000, all the churches had us go to this movie that was playing for the week at the Hippodrome Theater. 25-cent admission, popcorn, and I think soda included. The movie
Thief
was
in the Night?
well, everybody thinks that was it, and I've gone back and watched it, and Thief in the Night disturbs me greatly. But the
Mhm.
movie that I saw was even more graphic. They showed
The
people in
sequel?
when I heard the sequels got worse, I'm still traumatized a little bit, so I'm not gonna watch them. But the scene that got me now these were little kids, and this was in the 1970s, so there was no violence in the movies, right?
Mhm.
There was no blood, there was no gore, but we were a room full of little kids watching people on fire and screaming, reaching out to the audience to ask us to save them. They were wrong. They made a mistake. Help us, right? And there were kids. I was one of them, curled up in their seats, crying. We were terrified. There was a whore drinking the blood of Christians. I didn't know what a whore was. I had to ask
Oh,
my cousin. I knew I
uh-huh.
didn't want a whore drinking my blood, right? But
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I was terrified, and you should not do this to little kids. But I could not sleep after that was over. And yeah, the next weekend I went and got baptized. And then you'd think things were better, but I asked my Sunday school teacher, "Well, my mom is Catholic. Is she going to go to heaven with me?" And the teacher said, "No, your mom's not going to make it, but God has a plan for you. You need to convert your mother now. You need to save your mother from the fire." So my nightmares about burning switched from me to nightmares of my mother. I was on a cloud looking. I can still remember this dream. Um, Looking down at my mom, and the skin was peeling off her, and she's pleading with me, telling me how she loved me and how good she'd been to me. Couldn't I talk to God on her behalf? And I went and talked with this bright white light, and he said, no, she made her choice. And unfortunately, that's what evangelicals today say. It's like you had a decision. So
Mhm.
sorry, mom, you're going to burn. And it was a very hard time, very, very hard time.
Are your parents still with us?
We lost my father a couple years ago to cancer. Unfortunately, my mom is a saint. She's the best Christian, true. I think what Christ embodied, the good things I learned about him. She's just a wonderful, wonderful lady. She's still with us. And they offered to let me go to another church, because they saw what he was doing to me. I don't want people to think harshly of my parents, but here's
Right.
the thing: the church had already taught me, and this is all throughout the New Testament, about Jesus saying that you must hate your parents, you must leave your parents, leave your family. There was no way I was leaving that church. My parents were wrong. I was so indoctrinated that I drank the Kool-Aid. So
Mhm.
by the time they noticed the problem, it was too late. It was just too
Mhm.
late. I see in the comments, I agree with, yeah, it's psychological harm, and it does stay with you. I'm 62 years old and still a few scars.
Yeah. Yeah. Does your mom still go to church?
She's not physically able, unfortunately. She did go for a while, but
Mhm.
I think her and dad had a more tempered view of religion than what the churches themselves taught.
Mhm.
I got all my morals from my parents, and they didn't really come from a church. And people are like, well, your parents went to church, but my parents weren't these hardcore people that you might think they were. They are like a lot of people now in America who wrongly think that religion is always good, that it's always
Mhm.
a force for good. And to them, if their kid was going to church anywhere, that's good. That's fine. My child is going to church. And a lot of Americans right now, unfortunately, won't stop and listen to stories like mine and realize what things like these evangelical churches, like the Ark Encounter, what they're really teaching the kids. You can't get them to listen. And that's why I speak out, because
Mhm.
I've been there, and I've been to the Ark Encounter to write about it. And I just about broke down in tears watching some of the little kids walking up that gangplank, because it's hell. It's hell.
Yeah. Yeah. I was at the Botanical Gardens here in Huntsville and overheard someone talking about their plan for a trip to the Ark Encounter.
Mhm.
And it was everything I could take to control myself and not say, "No, don't do it. Don't go there. You're harming your kids. This
Yeah,
is not good science. They're not going to learn anything good there, but that this is what they want to do. It's not my place to go and tell them what to believe and what not to believe." So I kept my mouth shut.
I have encountered that in our own family. We've had people come in from out of state, Florida and other places, and they go there and they talk about how wonderful it is. And I do bite my tongue because they're not trying to convince me. Uh,
Mhm.
on the other hand, I'm a very, as you've in our conversations, no, I am vehemently opposed to the Ark Encounter. I think it is child abuse, and on those grounds alone, forget about the free, all the tax breaks they're getting, and the way they're ripping off the taxpayers. What they're doing to children is wrong. And
Yeah.
but so yeah, I do speak up. Maybe sometimes when they don't want me to. Um, Atheist for 26 years. Congratulations on making that decision. I'm sick to death. It's
Yeah, I wanted to read this comment. Sick to death says, "My father still invites me to church. I've been an atheist for the past 26 years." Yeah.
yeah. I still have people giving me books.
Mhm.
Sliding comments into my social media posts. I've pretty much left a lot of social media just because there's this false dichotomy. It seems like one side of this conversation is allowed to post their beliefs, as often as they want, and tell you you're gonna burn. And if I make a comment such as, "Oh, the Ark Encounter bought 99 acres of land for $1," this is, and they're like, "You demon, you devil worshiper. How dare you criticize Christianity for talking about somebody buying land for $1? I'm just trying to point out that these people are doing something wrong, but
Mhm.
I'm not allowed to speak out about that. I'm a bad person for speaking out. So
How far do you live from Ark Encounter?
we're about 45 minutes away.
Oh, wow, you're really close.
Yes, we live very close to the junctions of Interstate 64, which is the major east-west route, and I-75, which is north-south. And Williamstown, where the Ark is on I-75, and I can be up there. I've taken to doing TikTok videos. It's kind of funny. I mentioned this, I think, in one of our email conversations that I have like 100 followers on TikTok. And
Mhm.
after the protest, I went downtown after I met you at the protest and shot a video of how deserted downtown was because now nobody comes there. The Ark Encounter has its own buffet, right? Uh,
Mhm.
it's almost a 250,000 views that one TikTok uh,
Mm.
thing got.
Wow.
Um, so now on weekends, if I'm bored, I drive up to Williamstown and shoot video. It's that close.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I don't know what triggered it, but most of the comments have been favorable. But you do have people even from the city who are getting ripped off, who are defending it. And I know you remember from the protest, some of the locals were stopping and spinning their tires or playing loud music to try to disrupt us. Just like Jesus would have done. But yeah, there are people still defending this, and I don't understand because Williamstown really is a ghost town. There's just nothing there.
Yeah. Was it a bigger town before Ark Encounter came?
I've looked at the population stats and employment stats for the
Mhm.
past 10 years, and if I'm not incorrect, I think maybe 50 or 100 jobs were added in the last year that I saw, but I haven't seen the population of the town grow that much.
Okay.
It's just if you're from Williamstown, I'm not here to. I'm sure the people of Williamstown are very nice. I'm
Mhm.
not bashing the people. I feel sorry for them
Yeah.
because this was supposed to bring restaurants and hotels, and well, nobody's going to go to a Williamstown restaurant when the Ark has its buffet. The hotel that was built next to the Ark Encounter, guess who owns it, or one of the owners is Answers in Genesis. So who's going to go to a
Ah,
hotel
okay.
when Ken Ham owns the nice it's called the Hampton now. I call it the Ken Hampton Inn. Their property is actually adjacent to the Ark Encounter. You can jump the fence and walk into the Ark. But
I
anyway,
was I was wondering about that when we had the ARC protest. We stayed in a hotel in, South Cincinnati, which was about 15 miles away, and so when we came to the location and I saw there was a Hampton Inn across the street, I was like, "Well, why didn't we stay there?" But
yeah,
now I understand why we didn't stay there because Ken Ham owns that place. Okay, now it all makes sense.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. I've done a big Freedom of Information Act battle with the Kentucky Faith Trail, which is it's an organization that's run by one person. I won't name anybody on air. I'm not into doxing people, but they work for the Northern Kentucky Convention and Visitors Bureau. And this 11 Christian only site um, conglomeration is called a Faith Trail. So I FOIA'd their documents because they got $300,000 in taxpayer money to pay for. And the point, I'll get to the point, the statistics from the Ark Encounter's own marketing company say that of the Faith Trail, the top two attractions, the only ones that really get any traction, are the Answers in Genesis attractions, the Ark Encounter and the Creation Museum. And the pattern is people go to Cincinnati or Lexington or Louisville and get a hotel because there's things to do in those cities, right? They make
Mhm.
a 45-minute drive to the Ark Encounter, eat at the buffet, and come home. Nobody's shopping in Williamstown. Nobody. It's just the perfect gimmick. I wish I wasn't so honest. I could start a Tower of Babel attraction. Actually, I think Ken Ham's building that next. But
He
yeah,
is, I've seen that, and to me, I think the Tower of Babel is even more clearly something that didn't happen than, even the flood. The
oh
flood
yeah,
I understand why the young Earth creationists don't get the geology, because the geology is the strongest evidence, but a
Yeah,
lot of people just don't have the geology education.
yeah.
Where I went to school, geology was entirely an elective. And so I graduated high school and college never having taken a course in geology at all. I
Yeah.
didn't know the difference between an igneous and a sedimentary rock.
And that's important.
Mhm.
We touched on geology as a unit in high school. I was a computer science major, but I did make all of my electives natural sciences, and I went back for 2 years of natural science later as a pre-med student. So I did get a proper geology course, and one of the first things I remember was what a massive flood would do to terrain. It would cut a straight line path, whereas slow meandering water would make these big oxbows, these 180-degree turns you see in the Grand Canyon. And I was sitting there in class going, oh my God, they lied to me the whole time in school about this flood carving the Grand Canyon. There's no way a flood could have done that. So, yes, a basic geology class would help everybody. But unfortunately, especially here in Kentucky now, they're trying really hard to do the school voucher thing and get people into religious schools. And sorry, I don't mean to go off on tangents, but I ordered about 100 of these accelerated Christian education booklets that are used in Christian homeschooling. And there's no geology in those books at all. There's no geology. The kids aren't being taught. So, of course, it's easy to convince them a flood did this. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Especially when they have a geologist on staff who is
Yes.
telling them that the geology
Yeah.
says the opposite of what it really does say.
Yeah. Oh, some of the geologists that not just the one who's on staff, but there's one I always remember, Steve Austin, because that was the name of the $6 million man when I was growing up. If your viewers are old enough to remember that.
Oh, I loved that show. I lived for that
Loved
show.
it. Yeah, I did too. And I used to pretend I was bionic all the time. But yeah, so there's a geologist named Steve Austin. He's a young Earth creationist, and he's done things like gone to Mount St. Helens and picked up a 1-year-old rock from a lava flow and sent it into labs that told him, look, we can't date anything younger than 200,000 years old. He knew he was going to get a result. In my geology class, I learned that geologists don't just go pick up rocks at random and chunk them into a machine and get a test back. So this is what a geology education would help you. Oh man, barely alive. There's a fan. But so they hail Steve Austin as the hero geologist when actually he's a fraud. But you
Mhm,
need that
mhm.
little bit of schooling to know it. And I'm not claiming that I'm smarter than anyone or you're smarter than anyone. It's just that we took a class and we're able to compare what we're told by this church, the Church of Ken Ham, against real evidence. And the Ark Encounter science doesn't add up.
Well, I've mentioned this a number of times that, as I mentioned, I had never had a class in geology, so I didn't understand that the geology didn't make sense. But for me, what I did understand was history. And that's why I think building the Tower of Babel is a big mistake, because I don't think there's anyone that, if they give it some thought, won't realize, wait a minute, the entire world was not resettled by Babylonians.
No, it wasn't. And if you study some foreign languages and look at I think etymology is the right word, the way that languages have developed and their parent languages and cousin languages and so forth, um, you can see that it's just not possible that all the languages we have now would have originated in that one spot at that one time. Uh,
Right.
we have writings that are older than
Yeah,
blood.
yeah. It is possible with magic,
With magic, yes.
because with magic, anything is possible,
Mhm.
but, when we study the etiology of language, it becomes pretty clear that language developed in different places at different times.
It absolutely. I was shocked to learn that English was Germanic, but, you learn these things as you go, and it's interesting, and I'm not saying that I would force my beliefs on anyone about, well, beliefs, my viewpoint. I don't
Mhm.
hold beliefs. I try to make that clear because beliefs, that's a word that's loaded with a lot of baggage. But my thought
Yeah.
languages are on education. You don't have to go to school and come away believing that gay people are evil or that the earth is 6,000. You don't, or more than 6,000. You don't have to. The school doesn't teach you that. Nobody in school ever threatened to burn me for disagreeing with a statement about mathematics. Let's make this a neutral subject. Nobody ever threatened to burn me, but they're saying the schools are indoctrinating people. They're not doing that. It's the churches that are indoctrinating people. And yeah, why not? Why not at least, if you're going to debate evolution or religion, go read those books. I tell people that I debate. I've at least read the Bible for 30 years and ask them, how many books on biology have you read? And oh, I watched a YouTube video or I watched a Ken Ham video. Let's be honest with each other. If you're going to talk about something, try to learn about it first. That's all I'm saying.
I think you may have just given me one of the keys of why it took me so long to deconvert
Ah,
is, the way I was treated by atheists wasn't any better than how I was treated in the church.
that's a good point.
Specifically, you were mentioning that no one ever threatened you for saying something wrong at school. I
Yeah.
wasn't at school, but at home, when I said something my dad didn't like, I expressed an opinion he didn't agree with. He hit me across the side of the head hard enough to
Oh
knock
my
me off my
gosh.
chair, and
Really?
he was an atheist. So to me, there wasn't any difference between the
Oh,
atheist and the
no.
Christian.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, it is true. There are the stereotypical ugly atheists. They're out there. They're definitely people out there who, well, they're like your dad.
Mhm.
It's we're talking about human beings, and I don't think that any human is perfect. But I think,
Well,
go ahead.
I understand his issue. He had a serious issue with being told he was not intelligent or was less intelligent. So
Uh,
whenever someone expressed an opinion he didn't like, he tended to lash out with violence.
I have encountered that.
Mhm.
I have not been, well, I'd have to think about this. Generally, I wasn't hit or abused if I threatened. I was verbally abused, sexually abused at one point. That's a whole other story. But anyway, the point I wanted to make is yes, when you or I might make a statement that's factual, people will get offended. It's like, oh, you think you're smarter than me. You're
Right. Exactly.
exactly.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and and I got it from both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, same here, same here. Thankfully not at the dinner table, not like that, but yeah, I just anyway, the point is there not every atheist, every agnostic, every religion, people are people. I don't think they should be defined by one thing. I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but there are some atheists out there who I listen to who would, turn me away if I was a Christian. It would turn me off because they're a little too um, over the top.
Brash.
And
Yeah.
I would say I probably went through that phase myself. I went through the angry atheist phase when I first realized that this didn't matter. And my anger came from I've wasted a good part of my life on this. I've laid there so many nights crying and worried. And why? That's what hurt me.
Mhm.
Oh, that's Phil has a good comment there. The atheist and agnostic parents let them make their own mind up. That's what I wish parents would do. Let the children make their own mind up.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, did you want to, at some point, go into the abuse you faced as a 7-year-old? Because if you do, I want to give a trigger warning. Or do you wanna stay away from that topic?
Um, we should. I think an important point could be made, but a trigger warning would be very necessary. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
We may go into a topic that is not appropriate for young children and could be, triggering for anyone who has faced sexual abuse. So if you have children that are listening with you, it would be a good idea to redirect them because we may be going into that.
Or, yeah,
Okay.
give them a moment to, yeah.
My big question is, what was the straw that broke the camel's back for you?
Everybody asked that as if there was one thing, and the honest
Mhm.
answer is it was not one thing. There were so many things. Possibly the last thing that influenced me, I started studying religion formally in college, so it wasn't like, a church with a preacher who had never studied theology. They took the so-called Roman road, and these were people who were theologians, they were scholars. And I realized that there was more than one way to look at things, and that maybe my way of looking at things was also valid. That led me to start openly questioning, the bad science that I'd gone through. Um, but yeah, so we come to this topic that you mentioned, the trigger warning, has stuck with me for a lot of my life. I was sexually abused by a young Earth creationist neighbor for more than a period of time that was longer than it should have been, should never have happened. And I started seeing people, especially now, if you flash forward to today, in the LGBTQ community called pedophiles. Now, I have gay friends and family who watched over me when I grew up, and they were model Christians. They are Christians now. They're in their church. They do good works. They never hurt me. But this Christian who lived next to us abused me a lot. And it just hit me, how ironic is it that the pedophiles that the churches are talking about are in their own flock?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and all that my abuser ever has to do to get into heaven is say he's sorry for what he did to me. And I don't get to go to heaven because I don't share Ken Ham's beliefs. I'm the victim here. Um, and yet, so the broader point, and this could be the straw, the broader point I want to make is that if you are religious, you can get away with just about anything, no matter what, and wrap yourself in the cloak of the Word of God and get away with anything. And that's when it finally hit me that the people who'd been teaching me were getting away with anything. They were getting away with abuse. And yeah, sorry, very long answer. But yeah, it's still a topic that's hard to deal with.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, I have some slides of some things that I took from your book that I thought were of great interest.
Hmm,
Um,
okay.
this is from the chapter on where you were talking about the first time you learned about human sacrifice, that Abraham was asked to sacrifice Isaac. And you say the wheels came off that bus though when we reached the story of Abraham and Isaac in the church. Abraham was a faithful, godly man. God decided to test him by ordering him to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac. To my absolute horror, Abraham agreed. From what I could glean from my Bible concerning Isaac, he was innocent and faithful. He'd done nothing wrong. Why was he going to be slaughtered? A parent killing their child? Would my parents sacrifice me if God told them to?
Yeah. So during my time in church, there were a lot of moments where uh, this view of the church being good that was always presented to me would run up against something like the story you just read. I cannot and could not at that time imagine praising Abraham for being willing to kill his child. And yet, when I looked around that church that morning, this lesson was taught, people were nodding their heads. Yes, Abraham was a good man. Killing his kid, sacrificing his child showed that he was a true follower of God. How could that be? Even as a kid, I could see that sacrificing your child is not something that a good person, a good religion would do. A good God would not condone that. Uh,
Mhm.
that's just one of the many examples. Yeah.
And one question that I am tempted to ask believers, although I sometimes refrain because I'm not sure who's listening, and since we already gave a trigger warning and asked children not to listen, is what if you were told by God, God appears to you and gives you 100% certainty that this is God, and he tells you to take an AK and go shoot up a preschool, would you do it?
Yeah,
If it's right and just for God to order the slaughter of the Canaanites,
yeah,
how is it any different for God to order you to go and slaughter a bunch of preschoolers at a school?
yeah. Well, that's actually a real world situation. If you switch religions just briefly, we're coming up on the anniversary of 9/11, where people who were indoctrinated, just like I was indoctrinated, were told it was okay to kill innocent people in the name of God. And they flew a bunch of airplanes into buildings. How would the Christians be any different if they got that word from? And there are white nationalist militant groups out there right now that actually believe that people like us, people maybe who are transgender or whatever, they're inferior, they're dehumanized, and they're not that far from hurting people. They do hurt people.
Mhm. Okay, let's see. All right, I saw earlier how to change slides, and now I don't. Nope, that just didn't do it. Sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to change to the next slide in the.
Isn't technology wonderful?
Yeah, it's not giving me the option of going to the next one. All right, I'll just do it. Oh, I know. I have to do it this way. Okay. Uh, there we go.
Ah,
Okay. You continued. My religious teachers tried to comfort me by saying God never really intended for Isaac to die. This was just a test for Abraham. His son was never in any danger. All the previous killings by God and or in the name of God came bubbling to the foremost of my mind. This was too much to ignore. It didn't matter to me that Isaac was never intended to die. What mattered is that someone was willing to kill just because God said so.
yeah, yeah. This does segue into the September 11th point I made. So there were so many other stories. I think you mentioned the Canaanites, God killing all the firstborn of Egypt, and actually bragging about
Mhm,
hardening Pharaoh's heart beforehand. So he God actually brags, if you read the Bible, that he's hardened Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh is going to ignore, and God's going to kill those firstborn. There's a story that not a lot of people hear, but there was a time when Moses sent his brother out under God's orders to destroy every man, woman, child, living creature, pets, uh, farm animals. And his brother took pity and brought back the women and the boys. And Moses throws basically a hissy fit in the name of God and has his brother slaughter all the boys and all the non-virgin women. This was
mhm.
God saying, "Hey, it's okay." Now they kept the little girls alive, and we've
Right.
had our trigger warning. So I'll just say, what do you think they kept those little girls for? Uh,
Mhm,
and the flood itself, the the Ark Encounter is based on water rising up and drowning little babies in their cribs, of frightened little 2-year-olds having the water go above their head and drowning. Those children did nothing wrong. And yet we're told that these are good things. People look at the Ark Encounter like it's a Christian beacon for good, and it's actually celebrating the murder of little children. How can we not see this? What's wrong with some of us?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to talk to a young earther directly, and I asked him, drowning is a form of torture.
Yeah,
It is a painful death that
Yes.
takes 5 to 10 minutes to occur. Why would God inflict something like this on children? Why not just
Mhm.
Thanos style snap his fingers and have everyone die?
Yeah.
And his response was, "How do we know he didn't? Maybe as those waters were coming up, maybe God just made them all drop dead, and then the water rose up." Hey, we
Okay.
can insert all of the magic we want because we've got a magic sky daddy.
Yeah. Well, that's how it all works, isn't it? When reality doesn't match the scripture. Ken Ham is infamous for this with his, oh, they didn't need to bring every animal. They brought babies,
Young
that's
dinosaurs.
yeah, young dinosaurs, baby dinosaurs. Sorry, there's nothing in the Bible that says anything about babies. And by the way, they brought 7 pairs of a lot of animals, not just
Yes.
1 pair.
Mhm.
And
7 pairs of all the birds.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But hey, no, you just need 2 birds. You need 1 bird kind. All right. And then you ask them what's a kind, and their whole argument starts to fall apart. Oh my goodness. It's hard talking to them because at some point, they will always resort to magic.
Mhm.
Will always. Now, I've had people tell me that even those little kids were evil. They were tainted with evil, and that goes in with this whole original sin idea. So
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
might have a basis for feeling that way, or those little kids were going to grow up to be evil, and God saved them the trouble by killing them and taking them to heaven. I did ask this once in class. Unfortunately, it was around this. I believe this is in the book too. I think the editor had me keep it in when Roe v. Wade passed in '73. I asked out of the goodness of my heart because the church was telling us you're killing babies. And I said, what about all those babies who died in the flood? And my teacher, Sunday school teacher, I think they just dreaded to see me come through the door because I asked all these. She told me something like, well, they all went to heaven, so it was okay. And I'm like, as you said, I had almost drowned at that point. We're talking in the pre-show. I can't swim, so I almost drowned once. It's a horrible fate. And God did drown those children if you believe in this story. But yeah, magic. Magic solves everything.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh my goodness.
Ken Ham is getting ready to retire, and he has worked on finding a successor. The first successor he found for himself didn't last. That guy started with I can't remember which one it was, but he started with Ark Encounter and he didn't stay very long. And so he brought in another one. And do you think Ark Encounter will still have the same appeal without Ken Ham?
It's possible. He's got, I believe it's a son-in-law, Bodie Hodge,
No, Bodie's gone.
for the choked on my drink here. He's got some people under him in his family who are more, I think, radical than him. Um,
Bodie's gone.
I'm sorry.
Bodie is gone.
Oh, is Bodie? Oh, okay.
And that's one thing, I didn't notice this until Vice Rhino brought it up, that not only is Bodie no longer in any of the videos and things, they have completely erased him.
They,
If you they took down the page with his bio, they've taken down all videos that had him in it. I don't know what Bodie did, but Bodie did something that they completely erased him.
I've got to look into that. That is news to me. It's good to learn new things. Bodie, I believe, was the one who produced some of the most infamous cartoon I can remember, where agnostics and humanists and LGBTQ people and scientists were all lumped in as pedophiles. I believe that was a Bodie Hodge cartoon. And I did go looking for it. As you just mentioned, it was gone. Fortunately, we have a wonderful, wonderful guy here in Lexington. Have you met Daniel Phelps? He is like our watchdog. He's the guy who does the Freedom of Information requests every month to get the Ark Encounter numbers. He's
Oh,
oh,
okay. No, I do not know him.
um, he's really, really great guy. He's an anthropologist, and he takes on some of the silly science, but he also holds Ken Ham's feet to the fire, and he probably would be more in the know than I am on who's coming next.
Okay.
But yeah, that just it's interesting that the Ark Encounter sold us on having millions of visitors of years, and their numbers aren't even close. They're not. They're yeah. It's all ridiculous. And that was, by the way, how the Kentucky Faith Trail convinced Kentucky to get the funding. They used these false numbers that Ken Ham came up with and sold it to people who'd wanted to believe.
Hmm.
No, I'll have to look into that. I don't know who's coming next, but there are more radical people out there. Ken Ham might actually be one of the milder ones. I'm sure you've heard of Kent Hovind.
Oh, yeah. But
Yeah, who even the
Ken
Ark.
doesn't like Hovind.
No, they don't like each other at all. But I'm sure they will find somebody with their 5 or 6 long declaration of faith that you have to work for Answers in Genesis. I'm sure they'll find somebody in the wings who will take it over. It's
Martin Iles is the current person that he has picked.
interesting.
Yeah. They
Int-
brought Martin Iles, I believe, in from Australia, just like Ken Ham.
yeah, yeah, just like Ken Ham.
One thing that's really funny, though, is that Iles' last name is an anagram for lies.
Now, if we believed in that type of thing, we would see some evil lurking there, wouldn't we?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
One other thing I found very interesting in your book was your chapter on the telescope.
Oh,
Tell us about your first telescope.
well, as I said, I was a science geek, and I remember when I was really little, there was a solar eclipse, and I was out trying to view it with the film strips and stuff, which is really not safe. But we didn't know at that time. I did a lot of stuff that my parents, had they known I was endangering myself, probably would have disagreed with. But I was in love with the stars. And one night, my parents came home with this long wooden box, and they said, "This is for you." I opened it up, and it was a telescope. I was maybe about 12 years old, and I could not believe that I owned a telescope. I had been reading astronomy books or magazines I would get from the school, and now I was able to go out and look and see the moons of Jupiter that got Galileo into so much trouble with the church. I could see the heavens, and I use that in the secular sense. I could see them in motion. Most importantly, I could see light that was coming, hundreds of millions or billions of years ago. And I'd go to church and they'd tell me, no, that light was just 6,000 years old. What you're seeing with your eyes is a lie. It's the devil deceiving you. So every night I'd go out with my telescope and I would stare at the heavens, and then I'd come in and pray to God and ask forgiveness for seeing what I saw. This is what they do to your mind when you're, oh goodness. Oh, there's a pun. A seoscope, a telescope never tells you. Yeah, I like puns. But yeah, the telescope was a big thing in my life. I had all my toys were science toys. I got into amateur radio when I was young. Before there was an internet, I was talking to people in other countries and other languages, and learned that this isolationist view of the world that the church had for me just didn't hold up. And there was a better world out there. There was a better universe out there. And the telescope kind of kicked all that off. Yeah.
That's cool. That is so cool.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I found that so fascinating is as a Girl Scout, I tried to do the astronomy badge,
Ah.
but I didn't have a telescope.
Mhm.
I didn't have any books on astronomy. I didn't have anyone to tell me anything about astronomy. And so I'm going out and I'm looking up in the sky and I've got no idea what it is that I'm looking at. I learned nothing. I learned absolutely
Oh,
nothing.
it's, I don't know how I came to it. I think it was just my obsession with reading. They say that I was reading like at a grown-up level around 3rd grade, and I remember going to the library and checking out books in the library and telling me, "Those books are for grown-ups, you won't understand them." And I started quoting stuff from previous books written for adults. So I was going in and checking out books on astronomy, and I think Sky and Telescope, the magazine, was around in the 70s.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I don't know if the astronomy, self-titled eponymous astronomy was out, but Sky and Telescope was. So I did have a little bit of a resource there. So it was self-education. I had no teacher either until I got well into school, but I loved it enough that I just stayed with it and read about it. It's fascinating. It still fascinates. I've still got a telescope in the, much to my wife's chagrin, downstairs, right out in the public space, so I can get to it easily. But
Cool.
now with light pollution and everything, it's so hard to even see what's above us. That I think people are losing touch with. Ironically, I think people are losing touch with what they would call God's creation. They
Mhm.
don't see that big stream of stars overhead, and it's. I've been on some isolated islands in the Pacific, and it is blinding. There are so many stars up there that you can't make out constellations like the Big Dipper easily because the stars are lost among all the other stars. It's just a wonderful thing, and we're losing it. It's sad.
We in Huntsville are at the very end of the foothills of the Smoky Mountains.
Okay.
So we have one mountain in town, it's Montesano, and there's an observatory at the top of Montesano. And so if we want to, we can go and see the stars at the observatory at Montesano.
Oh, that's nice.
Mhm.
That's cool. And I would encourage people to go to planetariums. There are universities. We have in Richmond, Kentucky, not too far from here. My college town has a world-class planetarium. They, I think, got it as a result of a lawsuit. The original equipment wasn't delivered on time, so you can at least virtually see the stars. Seven dinosaur birds. That's yeah, seven dinosaur birds on the Ark. One of
Y
your contributors there, Limited Light.
Yeah, I one thing I'm thinking is, this might be another contradiction in the Bible that I had never considered before, and that is, are reptiles a clean animal or an unclean animal?
That's a I
Because
think
birds are definitely considered a clean animal. Let's see.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that they're unclean, but the Bible doesn't recognize birds as dinosaurs according to
Right, because
canon.
they didn't know that.
They're
Yeah.
they didn't know. They're a different kind. Uh,
Mhm,
air
mhm.
quote here. They're a different kind, so they would not have known that. So yeah, they've been eating reptiles all along. Well, they diverge. They're not reptiles anymore, but yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, I just looked it up, and yeah, reptiles are not considered a clean animal,
Yeah,
and yet reptile birds are reptiles. They just didn't know that, but birds are clean animals. So evidently unclean animals can evolve into clean animals.
that's really revealing. It's like we said, it's magic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And, purple rhymes with orange tells us 7 dinosaur birds, 6 fossil ferns, 5
I
trilobites.
pause. I don't yeah, if I sing on your show, you're gonna lose all your viewers. No, actually, my one of my favorite hobbies is karaoke, and I love to go to the karaoke bars and some of the, conservative places and sing, like, Ozzy Osbourne, may he rest in peace, and, Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, or just something to shake folks up, so, uh, I go off on tangents a lot. I should have warned you before you brought me on.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm fine with that. I have absolutely no problem with that.
birds are yeah, dinosaurs. That's where they came from. Ken Ham doesn't like it, but he's gonna have to get over it because that's what the evidence says. So
Mhm, mhm.
yeah,
I don't think he will, you know?
no,
The evidence also says that, the Tower of Babel didn't happen and the flood didn't happen, and he cannot admit that because that would destroy his theology.
it all does. Oh my gosh, I both love and hate reading some of his uh, thoughts, his insights on flood geology. You mentioned earlier sedimentary rocks and igneous rocks, and how poorly he misunderstands even basic things like that. So how would we expect him to understand that birds are related to dinosaurs, or the fact that animals like lions, these so-called cat kinds, are carnivores? They can't exist without fresh meat. They will die. They cannot eat things that are not fresh meat. So you need a year's supply of fresh meat on that ark to keep them alive, or they die. Their digestive systems won't allow processing of plants. But try to tell that to Ken Ham, and somehow their digestive systems magically switched once they got off the ark. And so there's a chapter in the book where two lions are standing there staring at the only two gazelles on the planet, and they're in a quandary. They're like, do we eat them? Because we're really hungry. There was no buffet on that boat. But if we eat them, we're going to go extinct because they can't make any more gazelles. And I would be hanging there because I don't know the answer to that question either.
Well, gazelles actually would be a clean animal, I think.
Oh, so we get more pairs.
So you'd need 7 pairs of them.
Oh, okay. Well,
so the lions can kill 1 pair.
Yeah, and last on it for a whole year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because apparently, I don't remember my animal biology that well, but I think the meat can't be rotten. There was something about vultures being able to process rotten food where a lion could. It was really fascinating, but I'm not a professional scientist. I won't claim to be, but if you go to school and take these classes, you'll learn pretty quickly. Oh yes, and there's another one of my favorites. The Bible does infer that insects have 4 feet. I've had that argument with a lot of people. They're like, yeah, it's 6 legs, but you can't.
My favorite go-to animal for the ark is the koala bear. And part of the reason I picked the koala bear is because it is the only member of its family. So you can't.
Oh, we've frozen up. We have frozen up, Kelly. I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay, we're back.
We're back. Okay, there we go. So koala bears. I was going to go with eucalyptus leaves, but go ahead.
Koala bears only eat eucalyptus leaves, and they will only eat them if they're still growing on the tree. They will not eat them if you pick them.
Wow.
So that means you had to have a eucalyptus tree growing on the boat.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, koala bears have a very slow digestive system. Eucalyptus leaves are not easy to digest. So koalas sleep 18 to 22 hours a day.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So to get them from Australia to the boat, and I brought this up with a young Earth creationist, was you would need a line of koalas for the.
Oops, we've frozen again. Technology is not with us today.
Strong is the problem. There we go. Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, technology is just gremlins in the system. Sorry. But
it's God's judgment.
It's God's judgment on this podcast. How dare you? How dare you? Yeah, but before you froze, you were leading up, I think, to the point that you would need this long string of eucalyptus trees all the way to the ark, and the bears could only walk a couple miles a day because they have to sleep, right?
Right. And then when they get off the boat, now Australia is moved away. How are they going to get back to Australia is the next problem.
Oh yeah, I think floating grass mats, or they're the logic, if one could call it logic, is so confusing. From even one yak to another will give you different answers on that one.
Okay, Phil O has a really good question for us.
Oh yeah, go with it.
Since gonorrhea is a human STD, which one of Noah's family had the clap?
Oh man, that hits home. If only Ken Ham were here to tell us.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it had to be a woman. It had to be. Oh, that maybe that's her name. Maybe that's what Clement means. But
That's
no,
that's why they don't give us the names of Shem, Ham, and Japheth's wives, because one of them was named gonorrhea.
his name again, gonorrhea. Oh my
Mm.
gosh, yeah. Well, there's this whole side thing we could go on to, but we won't, about diseases that needed hosts, certain hosts, and those hosts would have died. Um, yeah, marsupials, but yeah, it just doesn't work. Any way you do it, it just doesn't work. But magic, right? Magic
Mhm.
makes it all
Mhm.
possible. Oh,
Oh, this is really cool.
yeah,
I'm Australian. I know these things.
perfect. Perfect. Oh, you have a lively comment section. You guys are wonderful.
Mhm. Okay, we are out of time, but I want to again remind people that Mark has 2 books available, and there is a link in the description to buy each book from Amazon. And one of the books is called Journey to Reason, which tells the story of Mark's journey from young Earth creationism to atheism. And the other one is called Bound by Faith. And Mark, give us just a brief synopsis of that book.
That's a follow-up to, if you're wondering how things like Project 2025 and evangelicals are basically taking over government and public discourse right now. I go back to my upbringing and say, hey, if you wonder why people can think the way they do right now, that we're a Christian nation, here's how. And then I tie Project 2025 back to evangelical younger creationism. That's it.
Okay.
I mentioned too that if you happen to be a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, the books are free to you. So, but please leave a review, even if it's 1 star. Leave a review. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Um, Next week, my guest is going to be Bridge the Divide. Um, and he's someone I don't know very well. I've watched a little bit of his show, but I don't know him very well. And I think that's going to be a great chance for us to get to know one another. Mark, thank you so much for coming. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. Have a good day.
Okay. Live your life.
Yeah.